back to the channel. Y'all know who it is. It's your boy Ray G. You can find me at Ray GQ. If this is your first time on the station, the first time tapping in, welcome. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. If you stick around to the end, which you should, and find the content actionable and entertaining, hit the thumbs up button, like the content, and most importantly, what I tell y'all, engage with the good people below, the dopest community in the fantasy football game. In this episode today, we've got some great information over there in our database, Patreon.com/Prospect Talk. We are running rookie mock drafts 2022 from now until June, July time. We want to have the most ADP data available for you. So when those rookies get drafted and you need to figure out where to take some of these players, you got to be tapped into the Prospect Talk database, Patreon.com/Prospect Talk. What Jordan Backus is doing, incredible. I'm going to show you a little bit of it today, and I'm going to just let you know what I think is going to happen with some of these prospects as we go through bowl season, through the Senior Bowl. I will be tapped in. I will be in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl this year, going down there with the FTN Fantasy crew. So I'll get a first-hand look at a lot of these players that we'll be discussing, get a chance to interview them. Yes, I tell everybody, you learn a lot more watching these cats in practice than you do in the games, especially when it comes to these all-star performances where they're only together for a limited amount of time. So I'm excited to bring you Senior Bowl content as well, but let's dive right into the content. So right now at the 101 spot in our ADP rankings, and he's held serve at 101 the entire time. There have only been two mocks that Matt Corral has not been the 101. And yes, this is super flex. Majority of the leagues, 98.5% of the leagues I participate in are super flex. So this ADP data is super flex, driven, okay? So Matt Corral, 101. He's QB1 in the class right now, ADP of 1.3. He's only fallen outside of the top spot twice. And for me personally, he is my QB1. It's getting a little tighter, and we'll see how Kenny Pickett performed at the Senior Bowl practices. I do not believe he's participating in the bowl game. Full-fledged, focus on the NFL draft. It's between Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett for me. Those are my top two ranked quarterbacks in this 2022 class. Both of them should go top 15 in the NFL draft, which is outstanding draft capital for any quarterback. We'll see where they land, but Matt Corral, again, every mock that we've done, he's been the 101 outside of two. So pretty consistent when you're talking about the top guy. All right, let's give you a little peek behind the curtain inside the database and take a look at Matt Corral. So right now, Matt Corral, you see the top 10 quarterbacks in 2022 sorted by QBR. There you go. You've got Matt Corral sitting there with a QBR of 81.0, and this is taken directly from how ESPN rates their quarterbacks. But you see across the board, accounting for 22.1% of his team's rushing yards, incredible. He is a dual threat quarterback, so when you're talking about those guys in fantasy that can give you production on the ground and through the air, Matt Corral is not only efficient through the air, he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks in college football. Matt Corral right there with players like Sam Howell, Malik Willis, who is actually participating in their bowl game tonight versus Eastern Michigan. Matt Corral, his adjusted yards per attempt, which factors in touchdowns and interceptions, 9.4. Not bad. You see Kenny Pickett there almost at 10.0. He's at 9.8. We'll talk about Kenny Pickett later. And then his completion percentage, 68.3% completion percentage. One of the big things that we wanted to see from Matt Corral in 2021 is his turnovers, decision-making, and I think he accomplished that this season. So right now, when you're looking at the rankings, super flex format, if I had to take a quarterback, 101, it 100% would be Matt Corral, the outstanding junior quarterback from Ole Miss. And right now, our RB1, Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. Isaiah Spiller, listen, all of these running backs possess, when you're talking about like the top three guys, Spiller, Hall, Kenneth Walker, depending on how you have those guys rated, all of them possess the size, man. Isaiah Spiller, 6'1", 220 pounds, can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's consistently been going at 101, 103. Got an ADP of 2.9, putting him at RB1 in the 102 in our mocks. Isaiah Spiller, a super talented running back. I don't really care. Spiller, Walker, and Hall, kind of flip a three-headed coin, and I'd be fine with either of those guys. When I turn on Breece Hall tape and I watch him, he looks outstanding. When I watch Kenneth Walker, his contact balance, his acceleration through the hole, incredible. It doesn't matter. I am going to let's wait and see how tall they actually are, how much they weigh, how fast they run, and then ultimately where they get drafted in the NFL draft. If Kenneth Walker is a first-round pick and Isaiah Spiller doesn't go to the third, well, Kenneth Walker is going to be RB1. If all of those guys get lumped in there and they're all second-round picks like we kind of saw in 2020 with Swift, with Jonathan Taylor, with J.K. Dobbins, with Cam Akers, all those guys were second-round picks, I'll be looking at landing spot, leaning in on my film evaluations, some of the analytical things that we have, their profiles that we have built for you in this database. Isaiah Spiller right now, 102 in our rookie mocks. ADP of 4.3 in all the mocks that we've done. Wide receiver 1, Treylon Burks, the big wide receiver out of Arkansas. And let's take a look at Burks. So we're going to scroll through the quarterbacks. I guess I could have looked at the running backs for us. I mean, Treylon Burks right there at the top. The fact that everything on his chart is blood red, that's what you want to see. He's just an absolute monster, right? Yards per team pass attempt, very predictive stat, 3.83, tops in the country. Weighted dominator rating, which is the percentage of a team's receiving production, 80% of the yards, 20% of the touchdowns. And then it's just standard dominator rating, 46.1%, percentage of a team's 50-50. Receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. You know, a lot of people say touchdowns are the least stickiest metric out there. They're unpredictable. Calvin Johnson damn near had 2,000 receiving yards one season and 5 touchdowns. But when you see a player like Treylon Burks, and this isn't just 2022, these are the top 12 wide receivers in the country. So this is Treylon Burks versus everybody else in college football. Treylon Burks, an absolute animal. For me, my wide receiver 1 in the class. He's wide receiver 1 in every mock that we've done, going as high as 102 in 3 of the last 10 mocks that we've done. Treylon Burks right there with an ADP of 4.3, ADP index player 3 overall in the wide receiver 1. Now we've got back-to-back running backs here in our ADP subset. Breece Hall, ADP of 4.6, 104. Fantastic running back from Iowa State. I believe Breece Hall is a better running back prospect than David Montgomery was. Breece Hall, another one of those dudes, 6'1", 215 pounds. He's got the size, he's got the speed. And when you look at the running backs, let's go to 2022 running backs sorted by yards per team play. Look at Breece Hall right there. Yards per team play, 2.21. Red, that's what you want to see. Dominator rating, 44.1. He's good, y'all. He's good. And this is just in his 2022 class. Let's see if we sort it by overall running backs this season. And all of this is inside the database. Prospect Talk, patreon.com/Prospect Talk. Right there with Kenneth Walker. You see Tyler Batty, and one of my favorite players. We'll talk about him a lot in 2023. Big little old Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State. But Breece Hall, an absolute monster. And like I said, you have him at RB1, not going to knock you. You have him at RB2, fine. RB3, cool. Anything lower than that, you're tripping. Breece Hall is a monster. He's a stud going 104 according to our ADP. He's a monster. And 105 with an ADP of 4.7. Just a tick below is Kenneth Walker, the Doak Walker award-winning running back out of Michigan State. Burst onto the scene, the transfer from Wake Forest. Kenneth Walker, dope. You saw his name on here right after Breece Hall. I mean, the only concern, the only knock on Kenneth Walker, you see the blue, 6.1 reception share. That like they don't throw it to him. He has not shown an ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. That's a problem, but I don't want to swing too far one side or the other because Jonathan Taylor also didn't catch a lot of passes throughout his collegiate career. And we see no problem whatsoever because he's one of the best running back prospects that we've ever seen. I'm not saying that's Kenneth Walker, but Kenneth Walker is going to be a starting running back in the NFL. And, you know, yards per team play, look at him. I mean, right behind Breece Hall. Kenneth Walker, when I do a film breakdown of him, it's going to be fun because he's just an incredible running back to watch play. Love him, and I love where he's going. Not escaping the top 5, and that's how it should be. Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, and Isaiah Spiller, given the draft capital, if they perform the way that I believe they'll perform at the Combine, they should be locks to go. Maybe you see a running back go round 1. I don't advocate for that. Now, we go back to the QB room. Sam Howell, quarterback out of North Carolina. I've called him the great value version of Josh Allen. Big arm, mobile. Would you believe Sam Howell on the season, just raw stats, and I know no one likes looking at raw stats, but he's got more rushing yards than Malik Willis on the season. Now, Malik Willis is playing tonight, so he should surpass Sam Howell after the bowl game tonight. But Sam Howell, he was labeled a dual-threat quarterback coming out of high school. We finally saw that come to fruition this year, and he had nobody else around him. Lost both running backs, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams. The only wide receiver that he had was Josh Downs, who's fantastic. He lost De'Ami Brown. He lost Daz Newsome. You know, if this was a down season from Sam Howell, I can only imagine getting in the right offensive system, working with the legitimate NFL coordinator, how good Sam Howell can be. If Howell gets the first-round draft capital, I think this is an appropriate slot for him. If he goes first round, I'm not taking him over any of the running backs, but I'm probably taking him over all of the wide receivers outside of Treylon Burks. Sam Howell is a good player, man. He can run the ball. He showed that this year on the ground. He's got a big arm. He's got a live arm. Just got to improve some of the decision-making. That's why Josh Allen light. Josh Allen, for the first 3 years of his career, poor decision-making. Finally put it together in that third year, or was it the fourth year? And he became a $200 million quarterback. So really like Sam Howell, and I like where he's going at QB2 according to our ADP data. Not my current QB2, but I'm fine with it because of the ability on the ground with his legs. Kenny Pickett's my guy at QB2, but I really do like Sam Howell. Now, wide receiver 2, we finally go back to the wide receiver pool, and we go to USC for my wide receiver 2 in the 2022 class, Drake London out of USC. Let's take a look at Drake London, where he ranks amongst his peers. We'll see. Does he fit in? He missed like the last 6 games, so he's not inside the top 12, and he's not in here with the 2022 wide receivers. Missed quite a bit of time. Busted his ankle up, not in here inside the top 10. But I'm telling you right now, when you look at his raw numbers, played in 7 games, over 1,100 receiving yards in 7 games, Drake London is a monster. I believe he's the best wide receiver prospect to come out of USC. Whew! Marquise Lee was dope. He's better than Dwayne Jarrett. He's a better prospect than Juju Smith-Schuster. He's a better prospect than Robert Woods. He's a better prospect than Michael Pittman. He's right there with Marquise Lee. I know a lot of people say Marquise Lee was that dude coming out of USC. Better prospect than Amon-Ra St. Brown. At 6'4", 6'5", 215 pounds. He's got the basketball background, won Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, only playing in 7 games. He's got the early production as a freshman. He produced as a sophomore and went nuclear this year in his junior season. As long as the medical is clear, and every medical doctor expert that I've talked to says there's no issue to be concerned with Drake London, should be ready for training camp, NFL season. My wide receiver 2, people who are heavy into analytics, who say that he's probably going to be their wide receiver 1 in this 2022 class. So right now, Drake London coming off of the board at the 107 spot. I love it. Love it. Garrett Wilson, 108. And I think he's a phenomenal player. Fantastic prospect. He's gone as low as the 110, as high as the 106. 6 foot, 188. Not the biggest guy, but probably outside of Drake London, the best contested jump ball catch wide receiver in this class. He's good, man. Garrett Wilson is a beast. He's going to go top 10 in rookie drafts this year. He's going to be a first-round pick and potentially even push to be the wide receiver 1 off of the board. Love me some Garrett Wilson. He's not slotting in the database inside the top 10 with some of these statistics that we're looking at. But trust the tape. Yeah, I mean, you know it when you see it. Garrett Wilson, absolute monster, ADP of 8. Coming off of the board at 109 with an ADP of 9.3. It's actually seen his stock fall quite a bit. This player, the first mock that we did back in October, 103, 106, 106. Then he dropped down to 111. He dropped down to the 15th player. He's been as low as the 14th player off of the board, as low as the 16th player off of the board throughout our mocks. I'm not going to go that far to think he should have dropped that far. Malik Willis, the quarterback out of Liberty, again, playing right now. I'll be releasing this Sunday morning as you all scramble through inactives and COVIDs and all of this stuff. But Malik Willis, the ultra-talented quarterback out of Liberty, A lot of people look at him, they love the upside, right? The fact that he can run the ball, he's a dual threat, Konami code type quarterback. I just have some concerns. Malik Willis is a quarterback that is the type of quarterback that you want to see sit. I do not think you want Malik Willis coming in day one and starting for you. That probably would not end well. Coming off of the board is QB3, 109 in Superflex. I will be at the Senior Bowl, have an opportunity to see him up close, have him an opportunity to see him against his peers, like a Carson Strong, like a Kenny Pickett. I believe Sam Howell is going to be there. Bailey Zappi, he's rising for me inside of my rankings. You have to be able to consistently deliver the ball from the pocket, no matter how good you are on the ground. And here's the thing. He's not a generational type runner. Like Lamar Jackson is probably the best rushing quarterback I've ever seen play. Better than Michael Vick, better than everybody else. Some people say Randall Cunningham. I didn't get to see Randall play. What Lamar Jackson can do with his legs makes up for all of the deficiencies with his arm. But even still, it leaves fans and fantasy gamers clamoring for more consistency from the pocket. Malik Willis just have a ton of upside. Malik Willis, QB3, coming off the board at 109. At 110, we've got David Bell, the fantastic wide receiver from Purdue. Took over for Rondale Moore and just continued to pick up, man. David Bell's been good since his freshman year. I'm pretty sure the analytic crowd will love them some David Bell. He's consistent. I like him. Reminds me sort of this year's Rashad Bateman. Really good at everything, not great at anything. I love David Bell. I have him as a tier 1 prospect in the class. Don't know where I'd rank him yet. I really love Jameson Williams out of Alabama. There are a couple of other guys that are kind of jockeying for position. I'll let some of the pre-draft process play out before I definitively place a ranking number on David Bell. But David Bell, he's been pretty consistent in his slot, right? David Bell coming off of the board at the 110 with an ADP of 10.7. 111, QB4, which if you get Kenny Pickett at QB4, I think you got yourself a steal. If you get Pickett at QB4, you got yourself a steal. I'd be taking him much higher than that. And Kenny Pickett, we showed in the database, Matt Corral. Kenny Pickett, QBR, 81.8. Adjusted yards per attempt, 9.8. Better than Matt Corral. Completion percentage, 67.7. Doesn't really give you a lot on the ground. Something about Kenny Pickett, I don't know what it is, but something feels like Kenny Pickett is going to work at the NFL level. I can't quantify that. When I watch him, I'm just like, this dude, if he lands in Pittsburgh, if he lands in Carolina, if he lands with Denver, it's going to work for Kenny Pickett. And all the NFL execs say he's a lock for the first round. You're getting the first round quarterback at the back of the first. I love David Bell. I'm not taking David Bell before Kenny Pickett. I'm intrigued by Malik Willis. I'm damn sure not taking him before Kenny Pickett. And I really liked Sam Howell, and I'm trying to fall back in love with him, but I'm not taking Sam Howell at 106 over Kenny Pickett. If I'm getting Kenny Pickett down here at the 111 spot, I'm jumping for joy. When you talk about a riser, he's one of the biggest risers in our ADP database. I think Kenny Pickett is going to propel himself to be the QB2, and potentially I would not be shocked if come May, the first quarterback's name we hear called at the 2022 NFL Draft by Commissioner Goodell is Kenny Pickett. I like this Kenny Pickett dude. Shout out Jared Wackerly from the Dynasty Nerds. Been over Kenny Pickett longer than anybody. Now, rounding out the top 12, Jameson Williams. And outside of Pickett, I don't think there's any player that's increased their stock more from last season to this season than Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, let's pull him up because I saw him in here. I know he's in here. Let's move through the running backs. Let's get to those wide receivers. There he is. We don't even have to go to 2022. There he is amongst all his Power 5 peers. Williams, 6'2", 188 pounds. Yards per team pass attempt. There he is, 2.85. Weighted dominator rating, 30.9. Dominator rating, 31.3. Jameson Williams, only, when you're talking about the 2022 class, only 2 wide receivers have better analytical numbers than Jameson Williams. Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky and Treylon Burks from Arkansas. And I've got Jameson Williams ranked higher than Wan'Dale Robinson. Like me some Wan'Dale, but Jameson Williams is everything that we wanted Henry Ruggs to be, a lot of what we wanted Jerry Jeudy to be. He's a combination of both those guys. He's a fantastic route runner, route technician. He plays the game very physical. When you watch Jameson Williams, man, it's just a physical wide receiver, but he's blazing fast. You're talking about a player who's probably a lock to run sub 4.4. Now, Treylon Burks might crack sub 4.4 and he's 230 pounds. Jameson Williams at 188. It wouldn't be as impressive. It's still 4.3 is 4.3, but he's much more than a blazer. Like I keep saying, he's a combination of Judy and Henry Ruggs. And I think there's a real possibility. You know, we talk about Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Real possibility that Jameson Williams hears his name called first at the wide receiver position in the 2022 NFL draft class. Love me some J-Mo. His stock, big arrow up in our rankings in our ADP system. Big stock up. I probably got him at wide receiver 4 right now. Just a tick below Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London. But Jameson Williams has really, really impressed this season, and he's got a couple of more games to put even more film on wax. So some players that I think may fall out, according to, we currently just finished up a mock last night, so that data is not included in this. I think David Bell might fall out. I think we're going to see Kenny Pickett be a big riser when we do a refresh to this. Again, we're doing mocks every single week. Interested to see Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder didn't make this top 12 subset, but if he performs well versus Alabama, I'm seeing a lot of smoke around Desmond Ridder being a player with first-round potential. Malik Willis, will he fall out of the first? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see come part 2. So part 2, we've got some other good players we're going to talk about and round out that top 24. But I appreciate y'all stopping by. We are doing mocks weekly to give you the rest of the ADP data as we continue to still churn out these mocks and provide actionable content for you. So if you stuck around, you liked the show, you appreciated the content, thumbs up, subscribe, engage with the people below. Who are we missing? Where are we wrong? This isn't me. This is the ADP from all the mocks that we've done. I appreciate y'all tapping in. We'll be back with more content next week. I'm out. Peace.